So hello, this is my control panel upgrade for the Arcade1Up 12-in-1 machine. So what I wanted, my goal here was to use a standard sized Arcade1Up control panel and put all the controls I wanted on there to try to fit it on one. In this case, two joysticks with 6 buttons, trackball, and I decided to put two spinners in the front for 2-player driving games and things like that, such as the game you see up right now, Super Sprint. So the color scheme, I went with the control panel. I split it up. One side is Centipede, one side is Asteroids graphic, and I did that because the theme of the Arcade1Up is Asteroids and Centipede. So that's why I did the control panel that way. There are a little bit of imperfections on here. This is the first time I've applied vinyl. I printed the vinyl out on my Epson printer. My Epson printer prints 13 by 19 sheets of paper. In this case, I bought 13 by 19 sheets of vinyl. And I applied that vinyl. This is the first time I've applied it on there. But you can see in some places there are little imperfections, particularly where right here where the plate is for the trackball. Because of how I routed it, my routing skills are still not that great, but I'm learning and I'm improving. This is a lot better than some of my previous projects that I started out, so I'm improving. Let's just leave it at that. So when I put the vinyl on, it's a 6mm vinyl, and I also had to put this on here as well. This is a put on top of it because the vinyl, when the ink's on there, if something like a sticker or something gets on there, it will peel the paint off a little, or not the paint, but the ink a little bit. So I applied this as well. It's contact clear matte, transparent matte vinyl. So I applied that on top of it as well to give it a little bit of protection, and it looks out pretty well. Normally before I've been drilling Lexan and just kind of putting that on top, but because of the ball here, the track ball, I wanted it up as much as possible. And if I put the Lexan on there, it wouldn't have. It would, the ball would still be up a little bit, but the Lexan would add like 1/8 of an inch to that, so I couldn't use it as well. Now I also had to put an extender in here to allow for the spinners to spin. As you can see here, kind of decorated it the same way. This is being held inside with 2 brackets, and I was going to use 4. I was going to use 2 here and then 2 on the other side, but I just put 1 here on the left and 1 on the right. So that is holding that in place pretty well. The encoder I use for this is a X-Arcade tri-mode encoder. It's their latest encoder. That's why you see some things specifically here for the X-Arcade. I'm sorry. So you have the mode selector, which switches it from keyboard, programmable, X input, and direct input for the joysticks and the buttons. I use X input because this is a Raspberry Pi. You could also select direct input. That's for Xbox. You could also select keyboard, and it would detect it as a keyboard, but you wouldn't be able to use both controllers unless you loaded a special driver in the Raspberry Pi. That's also why there's an X-Arcade mode button. That's for upgrading the firmware on the encoder. For the volume and the on-off switch, of course, the on-off switch is just a switch, to power off the Raspberry Pi. The volume, I just used the Arcade1Up solution, which was just, if you flip it left, it's mute. In the middle, it's medium volume, and then if you go to the right, it's high volume. That works for me. I haven't set it up yet, but I've had it work before, and it works fine for what I need it. So at some point, I'll probably want to put a actual volume control in there, but for right now, it works for me. So some of the issues I have in here, everything works great, but there are a few little issues. The first one is when you're playing with the joystick. And again, some people are going to find this an issue. It's not an issue for me, but I understand some people will find an issue. So when you're playing a joystick game, so when you got the one-player joystick, your palm is resting on the spinner control. So some people may find that uncomfortable. For me, I don't have a problem with it, but some people may. And it's the same thing if you're using a trackball. So if I'm using a trackball, normally you'd have these buttons. As you can see, the spinner control is kind of blocking your hand. Now you can just put your palm on top of it, and it works fine. But some people may have a problem with that. Now, a solution for the trackball is just to move the fire buttons or whatever in the middle, and you can avoid your hand hitting the spinner control. But that was one of the reasons why I bought these like this, because the tops come off these. So if I want to pull that off, I just pull it off, and it doesn't impede my palm anymore. Now there's a little knob that is on there still, but it's not like stabbing you in the hand. I mean, you can still play. And it's the same thing if you're playing with the joystick. If you want more room, you just take that off, and now you got more room. Player 2, you got a little bit more room. Player 1, of course, you don't have as much room when you're putting your palm down. But again, once you take that off, there's ample room. The other problem that I had with this is for the wheels, steering wheel controllers. So I bought these steering wheels because I wanted to, for driving games and such. I was like, you can use the spinner controls, but I wanted the steering wheel controls. So when you pop those off, this just goes right on top of that, and then you got a steering control. Now I thought I had measured this properly for clearance on this, but I did not account for the top of the joystick ball. So basically, when you're driving like this, it's fine, but when you do wide turn, your fingers are hitting the joystick ball. So that's why I didn't account for that. However, it's not a major problem because I can take the ball top off if I'm playing a steering wheel game or a driving game. And when I do that, then I have the clearance to, spin the wheel. And again, if I didn't want to use the wheel, I could just use the actual spinner top. But I think the idea of using the steering wheel is pretty cool, and that'll allow me to use it. So again, some people are gonna have a problem with that. You always have to take off the top of the ball, or you gotta take the top of the spinner off. But the spinner controls, I kind of figured that was gonna happen. But for the steering wheel, I thought I accounted for that, but I didn't. So if I redo this control panel, I would have to adjust the joysticks up a bit so that it'll give me room to where I can use the steering wheel. So that's about it. The only other thing that I am doing is I'm creating pedal controls. So I bought these pedal controls on Amazon. It's just basically micro switch in there, so you press it, it's on. It's just like a button. This is what it looks like on the inside. So, and there's 3 wires. There's a red, white, and black. Found that you only need to use the red and the white, and you just connect it up like a standard button. And when you're in RetroPie and when you're configuring a controller, you just press it like a regular button. I got this one hooked up, and it tests all right. I'm still testing with it. Player 1 will have a gas and brake, and so will player 2. And once I get that up and running, I'll maybe have a video for that. But this is pretty much it. This is my control panel replacement. Again, everything, I think it works great. There are a few things like you have to take the tops off in some cases, the top of the joystick if you want to use the steering wheel controller. But those are minor issues. To just take the ball top off or the spinner control top off to give you enough room if you want to do that. But other than that, I think it came out pretty well. Again, things I'm still learning, vinyl application, measurements, things like that. And as I continue doing this, I learn more and more, and I get better at it. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and thank you for watching.